too much ability and too much potential. And maybe he and his family will come and go with us, and we can kind of spend some time, take him under our wing, and encourage him a little bit. But there are cases like that, stories like that all around Brotherhood. And what we're trying to do in these two schools in Tennessee, we're wanting to recruit and then to train men to preach the gospel here in the States. There's a possibility that we might even do some of this work in the state of Alabama. Preached recently and visited recently with a congregation in Northeast Alabama and gave them a prospectus for starting a school similar to these. And by the way, I want to say in May, and I'll get the dates for you, in May, I'll be teaching a class with the National School of Preaching that will be entirely on Zoom. And if you would like, you can email me and I'll send you a link. You don't have to take it for credit. You can audit the course. But it's going to be a study of church growth in the book of Acts. And so everyone here at Summerdale, that'll be taking place, actually what we'll do, 2 hours on Thursday night, 2 hours on Friday night, and then 4 hours on a Saturday morning. And you'll have the entire semester done in 3 sessions. Their summer semester is just 8 hours. So if you would like to take a class in church growth in the book of Acts, that will be in May, and it'll be entirely online. And then in June, I'll be teaching a class titled The Ministry of the Word. It'll actually be more of a preacher's workshop. Billy and I have discussed this possibility. I've been conducting these workshops. You'll see these pictures up here. One is in the Philippines, one's in Cape Town, one is in Pretoria. Looking at those pictures, I think one might be in Manila and another in Cape Town. But I've been conducting these, maybe perhaps one of those is in Johannesburg. But I've been conducting these workshops around the world. And so what I'll do for credit for the students at Nashville, I'll conduct this workshop, but it will also be on Zoom. And if any of you would like to get an idea of what I'm teaching these men around, around the world, you can tune in. I think that's going to be June 6th through the 8th, I think, but I'll have to go back and look. But it too will be a Thursday night for 2 hours, a Friday night for 2 hours, and then a Saturday for 4. But Billy and I have been talking about the possibility of trying to do some workshops like that here in South Alabama. An opportunity maybe to encourage preachers in this region of the country and see what we can do, possibly even to recruit young men. We've got one job to do in the Lord's church, and that's to preach the gospel to every creature on the face of the earth. That's our one job. And the harvest is white and the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. Perhaps sometimes we don't realize how great the harvest is. We live in what some have deemed a post-Christian society. And yes, it's true that interest in religion is waning in our country and several of the Western countries. I suppose that's true. But you can see some of these pictures that we'll show. I've yet to go to hold one of these workshops where in a foreign country where the interest wasn't outstanding. And so there's growth in the Lord's church that's taking place all over the world. And I think if we will light a fire of revival, perhaps we can see the same kind of growth taking place here. Here's how I spend a typical week. This is the Monday morning that is spent in Asian Christian University. Now, this was before they reconfigured daylight savings time, so I was teaching from 5 to 8 in the morning, but now it's 6 to 9 on Monday morning, and then Monday afternoon from 12 to 2 in Cape Town at the Somerset West School of Preaching, and then on Monday nights at the Middle Tennessee School of Preaching from 6 to 8:30. And then on Tuesday mornings, again at ACU, and then Tuesday afternoon in Cape Town, and then Tuesday night at the Nashville School of Preaching. And what's interesting about this, those 2 days I'm teaching on 3 continents. and the farthest I have to go is down the road in Tennessee. Isn't that something? So that's the technology that we have with Zoom. It's really incredible. We want to use this technology for the good that we can. Thursday mornings back at ACU, and then at South Africa as well. So in South Africa, we made a trip in December, last of December after Thanksgiving, November after Thanksgiving, and then into December. We conducted a preacher's workshop in Cape Town, and there was good interest there. I want to say there was probably, 60 or 80 maybe 100 people, I don't know. But preachers and church leaders, elders from all around the Cape Town area came, and that was great to see and great to meet those men. And I spent the week teaching a class in person at the School of Preaching, and you'll see there some of my students. One of my students, you can see the man beside me, the white man beside me, that is legally blind. And he brought me a scripture in Braille from Ephesians chapter 4. Ephesians 4 verse 17, is a beautiful passage of Scripture. Walk not as other Gentiles walk in the vanity of their mind, having the understanding darkened, being alienated from the life of God through the ignorance that's in them. You have not so learned Christ, if it's true that you've learned him, been taught him as the truth is in Jesus, and so on. Well, he brought that to me in Braille. Of course, I don't know how to read Braille, but I thought, wow, what a treasure, what a gift. In fact, I don't know that I've ever even felt Braille before. I guess I've seen it in places, but it was a very nice gift. Classes will actually resume there this Tuesday. I've got classes for the next several weeks in the Minor Prophets with them. We conducted a preacher's workshop. You'll see a big crowd up there. I think we might have had 150 to 200, I don't know. It was a large number at the Hilltop congregation in Johannesburg. So I flew from Cape Town up to Johannesburg and stayed several days there. I preached at the Somerset West congregation, and then I preached at the Benoni congregation, which is a suburb of Johannesburg, and held that workshop, had a good attendance. All of those men, though, it was a church leaders and / preachers workshop, but of all of those men and all those congregations that were represented, I asked them, I think maybe even one of the brethren might have asked, for every elder to raise their hand. Now, in this auditorium this morning, you've got more elders in the Lord's church than they had in that great big crowd. Of all those congregations represented, they had one elder. And what is interesting, and I'm hearing this in the States, I'm hearing this in South Africa, East Africa, and the Philippines. But there is a distrust for elders because the unqualified, the wrong men have been put in. And one of the stories that I heard in East Africa was that they had elders, and then one of their nieces got sick or something, and they took the church treasury and paid the doctor's bill for the sick niece. And of course, that just shot every ounce of trust that they might have had or would have had. And so they've thrown the baby out with the bathwater and said, well, we just won't have elders. So we've got a lot of teaching to do in that regard. But one elder there in South Africa, so in that great big workshop. And then the last picture you see is in Pretoria. That's the capital city. There's a businessman there who's an elder in the church in Somerset West. And this man asked me to conduct a leadership workshop for all of his employees and to take the biblical principles of leadership, of spiritual leadership, and, for employees of different heads of divisions of his business. It's one of those kind of businesses, I guess, that has several irons in the fire, different things going. And anyway, but there were also some church leaders that attended. The director of the Somerset West School of Preaching was there. There were some preachers who came and attended, so we were able to teach leadership principles in a spiritual way, also using Scripture to do it. Had one Muslim that was there and was able to introduce some Scripture to him, and some outstanding singing and fellowship, and that was the trip in December to South Africa. And then we took a trip to the Philippines here just in February and spoke at the ACU, Asian Christian University lectureship. Had a good crowd, good interest, good turnout. There's a picture of my preaching students. I was able to spend a night with them one evening and conduct a preacher's workshop, kind of workshop devotional period just with the preacher boys, and that was great. I was able to preach in, I want to try to pronounce that correctly, Magaldan, but the N has got to be heard somewhere, Mangaldan, but the way I heard it pronounced was Magaldan, but it was north of where I was at the school, and had good interest there, preached in Manila. Manila is an interesting town. Let me tell you a little about that. There are 14 million people in Manila. And you think about New York has what, maybe 7, 8 million, something like that. There are 14 million people. And it's been said of my driving, I don't drive, I qualify. But I'm telling you folks, I was intimidated in Manila. The way, they had probably about as many cars, automobiles, as what you might have during spring break here, you know. But then you throw in about 6 million little motorbikes and scooters and bicycles, and throw that in on top of all the cars. And that's what you've got. Man, they just weave in and out, and they'll just honk a horn to let you know they're coming. You know, man, I mean, you're just a nervous wreck. I'm thinking, boy, we're gonna hit somebody. We're gonna run over somebody, but they didn't. You know, life for them. But 14 million people, and there's about 20 congregations. Now there's 25 million people if you count what they call the suburban areas thereabout, the suburbs and little outlying towns. About 20 congregations, about 2,000 members of the Lord's church. Now where I live in Lincoln County, Tennessee, that's about what we've got in that county. We've got 20-ish, 22 congregations, give or take a couple hundred, 2,000, you know, maybe 1,800, maybe 2,200 members of the church. So in our little county, Fayetteville has 7,000 people. What's the county? Maybe 10,000, maybe something like that for the county. So we've got what they've got in Manila. So there's a definite need to do more work in Manila. There's no school in Manila to train preachers either. So that might be something that we take a look at moving forward, is trying to establish some type of school in Manila to recruit and train preachers. I think it would be worthwhile. I just want to gauge your thoughts. What do you think? I mean, do you think that would be something? It would take some doing now. It'd take some planning. And we would want to figure out what's going on as far as where and who. The thing I really like about ACU, they've got a man there as the president, and this is rare. I haven't been able to find a lot of men that are this. In fact, I don't know that I found any man that's this qualified. But this brother comes from just a fine Christian family. I met his mother and stepfather. His dad is deceased. When I was preaching at Magaldan. Fine people. His wife, I met her mother and father at the lectureship at the school. His daddy, her daddy is a fine and faithful old-time gospel preacher in the Philippines. And he has a tract, actually, that he wrote. I've conducted a workshop on writing gospel literature and so forth. And he's got a tract that supported him in that and gave him some means to print that and get that back in circulation. But a fine elderly gentleman, probably about 80 years old. And you just, sometimes you can just sense when you meet somebody that you're on the same page. You might not even speak the same language, but you're on the same page. And that was the feeling that I got with him. Well, Junius then and Alma, his wife, they come from that kind of stock. So they're just fine people, precious people. But Junius was a practicing attorney. So he's a very intelligent man. He can speak English very well, but he was a practicing attorney. And they asked him back in maybe 2012, something like that, 2011, 2012, if he would consider being the president of this school. And he said, I will on these conditions. And this is what he wanted. He said there has to be an independent audit from an outside party on the books, and I want it done regularly. Now, that was his stipulation. That's just the kind of integrity that the man has. He doesn't want there to be any doubt or any question about how he's spending the money. And the second thing that he did is he closed the petty cash. They had a little petty cash drawer, box, or whatever, and he was worried that might be too much of a temptation for people to use that and abuse that. So he closed it. And but he's actually one of my students. I teach a graduate course there on Thursday mornings, and he's one of the students. But a very intelligent man, a strong, faithful preacher and brother, and really enjoyed my time with him. But that's the kind of man, if we could find somebody like that in Manila, I'd feel a lot better about starting a school like that. What I ran into in Kenya, and I guess what I'm about to say may sound very critical, and I suppose it is. But I ran into situations where men would go to school for 2 years, and then they would realize that American money is coming in to furnish and to fund and build these schools and staff these schools. So they want a school. So you have all of these men who really are not qualified. I mean, what I'm saying, they're honest, I guess, and I'm not throwing anything at them like to suspect that they would be dishonest or whatever, but I don't think they've qualified. I just don't think they have the experience or the education or the know-how to run a school. And they would get behind on their budget, or they would get taken to the cleaners by a contractor or something going on, and you almost feel like, well, this man would be good if he was, say, the night watchman, but to make him the director of the school, I don't know. Wouldn't feel good about that. So what I'm saying is I look forward to the possibility eventually where we can establish schools. It's got to be with the right people. We've got to have the right people in place. I don't want to put somebody in place to direct a school over there somewhere that is not qualified. And so we'll just be praying about that. I know there are qualified men. We need to find each other through the providence of God. I'll say this too that's trust and obey. Okay, so that's all that I had then, was a report on those 2 trips. I'll tell you too while we've got a moment, and you want me just to back scroll this, guys? I can, to the worship slide. So what I'm working on now, I found that it's cheaper to write my own textbooks and have those things printed on demand and then go over there and give them to the students. You can write a book and have it printed for all $3, something like that. And, you can take 20 books over there for $60. Whereas if somebody else wrote the book, there's no telling what you would be spending on it. So I'm working currently on a commentary on Hebrews. I hope to have that done soon enough. Some of y'all on Facebook might see, I've got a little cat named Rascal. Did you see the video, Billy? Did you watch it to the end? I've got this little cat, and if I sit down to write, he feels like he's got to get in the chair right next to me and just sit there with me, So I think I might put him as the co-author, But sweet little old cat. But I've got a commentary on Revelation that I'm hoping to finish sometime this year. And then a devotional commentary on Psalms. And this will be something for you to just to have to read every day and take some comfort in the Psalms. Lift your eyes to God and rejoice with Him. And then there's this what I've been doing with these preachers' workshops. I'm taking those lessons and putting them together and compiling them into a book to give to preachers. And so that's what we've got going on as far as writing. The Gospel Gleaner continues to grow. We probably are about 3,500 to 4,000 subscribers on that, and probably we'll end up capping the printed copies at I would say probably 3,500. We have probably about 800, maybe 1,000 online subscribers, something like that. So far, I'll give you some figures too, as far as the men that we've been able to train. I would say, and I'm just going from last year, I would say we probably had 50, maybe 60 different students at Nashville, probably 20 different students at Culleoka, probably 20 different students or so at Somerset West, and then the people that we had in the workshops, maybe 150, 200 different people in those workshops. And some of those people being in the leadership workshop, if we included them, who knows, maybe close to 200. And then in the Philippines, last year, probably around 40 different students. And then again in those workshops and in the lectureship, probably maybe 200. That's a preacher's count. May have been more like 180, but you just rounded up to 300. All right, I'm glad y'all get my humor. But, I don't know what all that tallies to, but that's since we started this in January 1 of 2022 to this day, today, March 19th of 2023, I don't know, Miss Hazel, are you tallying that? How much is that? You don't know? I mean, it's probably, 400 or 500, I would think, students that we've been able to encourage, men. And these are elders, these are deacons, these are preachers, these are young men who are thinking about being preachers. These are students in schools. And so I feel like the good Lord is blessing us quite well. Now let me give you one other bit of information. This is just hot off the press, and I didn't even know it when I sent this PowerPoint to Christy. But Friday, I talked with a man who they actually, in maybe the last week of February, they have begun plans and got the ball rolling to start a school for preachers in England. And I think he said the name of the place was Leicester, England. All right, I don't have any idea even where that is. But here's what I've been thinking about was trying to add another school in another continent sometime this year. And this would put us then to, what would that be? That'd be 4 continents, I guess, that we would be in. Well, let's say it'd be Africa, Asia, North America, and Europe. So that would be the 4th continent and maybe the 6th country, I guess. So anyway, when looking at England, there are now more atheists in the British Isles than there are professing Christians. I mean, anything that you look at. Of course, when we think of Ireland, we think heavy Catholic. So you've got that going on. But you think of Scotland, the old Church of Scotland was the Presbyterian Church. England was the Anglican Church. But there are more atheists now than there are Anglican, Presbyterian, Catholic, what have you, in the British Isles. And there again, when you look at those three countries and you start accumulating members of the Lord's church and congregations and that sort of thing, you're looking again about 2,000, 2,500 members in those three countries. So we've got work to do. And there's not a school of preaching. There was a school that was called, and it's still in existence, the British Bible School or British Bible Institute. But what they've done is basically just kind of scale back to where they're offering courses, Zoom classes to anybody that wants them. They're really not emphasizing on trying to recruit and train preachers. So these brethren are looking at starting a school in Leicester that's going to emphasize recruiting and training preachers in the British Isles. So I called these brethren on Friday, and I told them, I said, well, I'm willing to help whatever you have going. I said, I'd be especially interested if we could do something in England or Scotland, something over there. And he said, well, that's interesting that you said that. We just started this in February. There are two men right now, one in the States and one there, that are working on this. And I said, well, look, I don't need to be the cook. I'll just be the waiter that carries the meal to them. And if you need somebody to go over and teach, if you need somebody to teach from here, be happy to do whatever I can. And so I'm looking forward maybe this week to hearing back from them. But if we can get into England and begin recruiting and training some preachers over there, then maybe perhaps we can make a difference. And what's sad, now the men I'm about to mention to you are not gospel preachers, not brethren, but there were men over there who had a tremendous influence in preaching. Charles Spurgeon would preach to packed houses. Joseph Parker, H.P. Liddon. These men all lived around the same time. Alexander McLaren. And these were men who were ministering in London. G. Campbell Morgan came along in the early part of the 20th century. Martin Lloyd-Jones in the second half of the 20th century. And again, what I mean is speaking to just full audiences in their respective church buildings. And now those church buildings are just cavernous museums to what used to be. And very sad. And it's equally, and perhaps even more so, disturbing to see that happening in America. How many congregations have these big, beautiful church buildings and maybe 25 or 30 people, you know? More like a museum to what used to be there than actually ongoing fire for the Lord. So we have a lot of work to do. And what we're trying to do is not just to recruit preachers, but we want to recruit the right kind of preachers. We want men who are going to be hardworking, men who are going to be sacrificial. We want men who are going to preach the truth, the gospel, but not to add to it and get carried away in a bunch of traditionalism or politicking or carrying away, and then not to take from it, and not, or to get involved in liberalism or some extreme to either side. Just good old-fashioned gospel preachers, men who will just preach the book. And I don't care what country they come from or what their background is, just give me somebody who wants to preach the gospel. And that's what we're looking for. And thus far, we've been able to find quite a few fellows like that, quite a few. And it's encouraging to see it. But we want to find more. And I don't know, guys. I couldn't do it without you. I want you to know that. What do you think? Is this something that you guys are happy to hear? Have we been doing well enough? All right. Well, just keep us in your prayers. Any questions or comments? Or anybody have any questions about anything that we've been doing? Billy? Huh? Oh, okay. Well, hopefully, Billy asked, what are my plans for the rest of the year? What I hope to do, as far as travel plans or all together? Yeah, okay. Well, I'll give you three. The travel plans, in sometime this summer, I want to make that trip to England. I want to get over there and see what's going on. That's hopeful. If that falls through, then I'll probably go back to Kenya this summer. And then this winter, I'll be making another trip to South Africa. So we'll go back over there and spend some more time, do some more workshops and some more teaching with those brethren, and see what kind of recruiting we can do. They're wanting to take that 2-year school and turn it into a 4-year college. They want it to be accredited by the government, and may have to do some help for them in that regard. So we'll just see how that develops as the year goes on. Writing-wise, I've got these 4 books that I want to print and publish, the Hebrews, Revelation, and Psalms commentaries, and then the book for preachers. We'll see how that's going. I should be done with the Hebrews commentary sometime in April, so we'll just see how that goes. And then teaching-wise, I'll be teaching of course, for Nashville, Middle Tennessee, Asian Christian, and Somerset West all year. That will go basically every month out of the year. I'll be either in one or all of those schools, either online or in person. So busy year, but a good year, Lord willing, we'll have. Any other questions or comments? Oh, thank you, darling. Thank you much. Well, we give God the honor and the glory. I tell you, folks, I drink from a saucer. I really do. You know the old country song, we're drinking from a saucer because our cup's overflowed. And God has blessed this work tremendously. And there have been people that I've come to know, and even people I've come to be reacquainted with, and that are excited about this work and feel as you feel. And I'm hopeful and prayerful, undeserving, but for whatever reason, the good Lord, I guess He's going to use what He has, and not much, but I just say, well, Lord, use me, and to His honor He is. Any other? Was that a finishing bell or a 5-minute bell? Mm-hmm. Yes, sir, Ben. Go ahead. Yeah. You want the microphone?
I wanted to say that, Andy, we appreciate the work you're doing. And, this is the same type of work that the Apostle Paul and some of the other great men in the New Testament did. Paul would go to these places and he might stay a year, 2 years, 3 years. And he was training preachers and training men to be able to take over the work and leadership. And that's the way you do it. That's the way you are successful in mission work. And I just appreciate Andy and his hard work. He works very hard. And proud to have you, Andy, working with us.
Well, the elders are certainly very supportive, and of course, this is their idea. I was in a hotel room in Bedford, Texas, thinking about moving down there and teaching for a school, and Billy called with this idea. Andy, what do you think? And I said, man, Billy, that sounds great, Of course, if I'd have moved to Texas, I'd have had to leave Melanie and Emma behind. I don't think they were moving. I don't think they were. That was kind of a deal breaker. Yeah, but she's planted roots in Fayetteville. I don't know why. Billy, you want to say something? Okay. But appreciate you being. Yes, sir.
Several years ago, Brother Don Myers was working with the church here. We were supporting Don full time to help plant preacher training schools. He was working through Sunset School of Preaching. He had gone into several countries around the world. One day I left my office, and that's where Ray's office is now, and I walked down the hall to where Don's office was, and I sat down. I said, Don, have you ever thought about reproducing yourself? Don Myers is a good friend of mine, and because of health problems, he's not able to teach at Faulkner any longer. He was there for a number of years. He said, well, what do you mean? I said, instead of you're going out and trying to plant schools, why don't you just teach in one of them? I said, why don't you just go up and teach at Faulkner University in the Bible department? He said, that's been my dream all my life. So I left my office, I walked down, I picked up the telephone, I called Brother V.P. Black, for whom the Bible department is named. I said, Brother Black, I said, Brother Don Myers, who at that time only had 2 master's degrees, he later pursued his doctorate, but I said he would like to teach in the Bible department at Faulkner University. And Brother Black got excited. He knew Don as well as I did, of what a splendid man he is and how knowledgeable he is of the Bible. And I took Don up to Faulkner. And of course, they hired him on this condition, that we would continue his salary from here for 2 years. And we did until they were able to raise the money to support Don. What Andy is doing is the same thing. He's reproducing himself. Andy is of the quality of preacher. And I hesitate to use quality, but that's the only way I know to express what I got in my mind, that could find a preaching job in our brotherhood. Well, I wouldn't say everywhere, because a lot of people don't want all the Bible that Andy would teach them. But rather than sitting in an office to himself and teaching maybe 150 or 200 or 300 people every Sunday, he's reproducing himself all over the world. And I think Summerdale is preaching the gospel all over the world through television, through the work that Wayne Pruitt is doing, and now through the work that Andy Irwin is doing. And I don't know about you. I don't know of a greater thing we could be doing. I don't know of another church that's doing anything like this, especially one that has 140 on Sunday morning. And so I think we're blessed. And I hope that we will continue this work for a long time to come. But Andy, it's good to have you and your family with you. He'll be preaching in the service to follow this. You're now dismissed. Thank you, Andy.